What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and why Tesla's looking pretty good right now and what the future is really holding for the price action. I'm also going to give you guys my price prediction for tomorrow and talk about what the data is showing for the markets in Tesla and some good news that just came out. Now, before I break anything down, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Don't take any of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is, any of these 12 free stocks could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer that ends in just 2 weeks. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Looking at Tesla, this thing was up about 7% for the day, and we are looking pretty strong as of right now. However, given how much we moved in one day, I wouldn't be surprised if we just came down just a little bit, got one last retest right here before we get a big bounce and a big continuation. Now, what's good about Tesla is we're showing lots of good strength. The volume is pretty decent for the day. However, we are coming very close to major resistance, because if I go back over the last couple of days, over the last week, you could see this 226 level right here was giving Tesla a very hard time for quite a while. You could see Tesla failed to break past it like 3 times in a row over the last couple of days. Then on top of that, going into the previous rally we had, the market got a big push up. Tesla pushed up to 226, got a huge rejection off it. So if we get a big breakouts tomorrow, whether it's tomorrow or the day after, we have to break 226. And I believe if we break 226, that's going to be a big sign of strength very soon. And I think that if we break that, if the market is actually ready to rally, all right, Tesla has to break 230, which I think it's going to be easier to break 230 than it would be to break 226, because resistance is very strong here. Get a break above 226. 230 could quite easily get broken, and then we'll have the potential to see a rally all the way up to this gap fill area at 237. So we could see Tesla in the high 230s very soon, but first we have to break 226. Now, I don't know the exact date where it's going to actually happen, but I am a lot more optimistic, and I do see some bullish signs in the market that are actually now confirmed and kind of showing us, kind of pointing in this temporary relief rally. So if you look at SPY, let me just pull this up on the daily. If you look at SPY on the daily and you look at the RSI, what's good about it is we are seeing some bullish divergence. I mean, it's pretty clear if you look at the RSI, SPY was on this downwards channel, but the RSI was picking up. So we were gaining more and more strength despite coming down to these lower lows. However, we need to actually get a clean break above this channel to really confirm it. So what tends to happen during these breakouts is we get a slight push to the upside. So SPY would have to push to 370. We could get a big rejection off that, retest the top end of this channel, then get a big break above that from there. We also have a big gap to get filled at around that 373 level. So if we do end up filling that gap, that would be good for Tesla, because the SPY and the Nasdaq can help it. For the QQQs, very similar setup. We have we have bullish divergence here again. The RSI is on this uptrend despite the fact that we did come to a lower low, and we are seeing some signs of potential for a big bounce to continue from there. On the Nasdaq, very similar setup as well. You guys can see bullish divergence. Once again, RSI is showing almost the exact same thing as the other things. And on the Nasdaq, we have this big gap right here around that 11,000 level. It is very possible for us to actually fill that gap in the near term. Now, just because I am saying that we are going to most likely push up for the short term, or I am a lot more bullish than bearish, it doesn't mean that I'm saying this is going to last forever. I'm seeing some temporary relief, and I do believe earnings are going to play a big role in this, not to mention the fact that this is something that historically happens in the markets during this time. But considering what happens after that, that's why you have to be very cautious. So if you look at previous data, the S&P 500 midterm election year seasonal pattern since 1946, you will notice that we have a very similar trend as to what happened during this red line, which is the second year when we had the second year of a new Democratic president. You will notice that in October, we tend to get this big push to the upside. Then we tend to get a big drop as we approach November. Now, that seems very possible because you have to remember that November 2nd is when we have the FOMC meetings starting. And that happens to be when midterm elections are. So we could see a temporary relief rally for a week, in my opinion. But the last week of October, going into like the first week of November, that time could be very critical. And I think it's also going to be heavily dependent on the next earnings coming out. Right now, the markets were, let me just close this real quick. Sorry about that. The markets were extremely fearful, and now we are more on the fearful side, but we're not as fearful as before, which is somewhat of an improvement. Now, looking at earnings, Tesla has their earnings after the close on Wednesday, and we are showing signs of rallying into earnings. Now, how we move after that is going to be very dependent on what is announced. If Tesla has a big miss on earnings, we could end up going the opposite way. If not, we could continue to hold up for a little bit longer from there. Going into tomorrow, we have Netflix, we have other big banks out there. We have like United, we have Johnson Johnson, a bunch of other big companies also reporting earnings. It's going to be very telling, and so far we're doing all right. It's not necessarily great, but it's not horrible because lots of expectations have been lowered. But overall, I want to see a continuation of this. Looking at the data for Tesla, you will notice that the price comparison between Tesla and SPY, once again, very similar, but Tesla was showing a little bit of weakness in the past when it was coming down much harder than the overall market at some points. Now, I'm hoping that we see a big bounce right here in the price pairs ratio because we could see a slight uptrend being respected from this end. If this continues to push up, this would be a good sign for Tesla because Tesla would make better moves than the overall market. And I do believe Tesla could do that if we do get some nice volume to continue coming in. Historically, Tuesdays tend to be green days for Tesla, at least 51% of the time. This is a good sign for Tesla. We should see a green day tomorrow, in my opinion. And if it doesn't happen tomorrow, it should happen on Wednesday, given what the data is showing and other metrics. When it comes to Max Pain for Tesla is at $250. Now, I was actually not looking at Max Pain as much over the last couple of weeks because it did not matter as much as Tesla was not respecting it. But now there is some potential for us to respect this because we are showing some signs of approaching it as it's actually well above where the current share price is. So there are lots of metrics out there suggesting that Tesla could continue to push up. And I am more bullish than bearish, at least because of that. However, I need a little bit more confirmation to confirm how high we're actually going to end up going. As far as the MACD goes and other big technical indicators, we are gaining some momentum. So I see that as a pretty good sign. If I go back to like the daily first, you will notice the MACD and the signal line are getting very close to kind of like crossing, and we're seeing the bearish momentums. The histograms are getting smaller and smaller from this end. This is a good sign for Tesla. The momentum is increasing, and also the overall RSI is starting to pick up a bit, which is a good sign for Tesla, showing some more relative strength. Now, on the 5 minutes, I want to talk about support and resistance levels that you really have to watch out for. So, right now, I'm not seeing major pieces of news really affecting Tesla as much, at least for the short term. I think right now, going into earnings, we are showing some signs of a nice push up. And this is what typically happens because there are lots of big expectations which could be met by Tesla. Tesla's overall deliveries in Q3 were not necessarily bad. So I would be uh, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if they do very well. But at the same time, you have to remember what's going on in China, as we did see some new announcements being made about them kind of like respecting these policies for the zero virus policies and things like that. So I'm still very cautious at the same time. Once again, where support is. All right, so we have support at 215. If we break below that 210 to 211 range, I think it's actually stronger at like 211. So watch 211 if we do come down there. And then finally, we have that big gap down here at around like 205. I don't necessarily see Tesla filling this gap for at least the short term. I think we're more likely to push up a bit from here. Now, if we do come down a bit tomorrow, I'm hoping for a big bounce off a very key level. And that's essentially what I'm seeing. However, when we get the big break to the upside, which I believe we will, we're going to see nice volume coming in. The volume is looking very nice. If Tesla continues to get that big breakout, I'm going to be watching 226. We got to break 226 if you want to see this thing fly. If we don't break it, that's going to be a very, like, not even like the best of signs, in my opinion. However, I think it's more likely that Tesla actually breaks 226 because earnings is coming up. We're seeing more buyers stepping in, and I'm more bullish than bearish overall, at least for the next couple of days. So for tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised if we see another very similar day where Tesla does something like this. We open very closely to where we were. We immediately start to see lots of volume come in and Tesla immediately tries to go to like 226, we might get rejected at first. All right, we might come down for some time, but I wouldn't be surprised if we come down and then we end up getting a nice bounce again and we start testing it over and over again and we finally get enough volume maybe near the end of the day or something like that to break past 226 and come to about 230 a share. I do think it's very possible Tesla could close around like 228 or somewhere around there. That would be a more bullish possibility. And if we, continue to hold these levels, that 226 to 230 range, we have the potential to fill the gap above at that 237 zone. Now, if Tesla does end up coming down, all right, watch these support zones, around 215, 211 to 210, followed by 206 to 205. All right. So watch those very carefully. Do what you have to do. Remain calm, cool, and collected. I want the best for everyone out there. The market is very trippy, which is why I'm not always extremely fixated on just one direction. I'm always ready to like switch no matter what on earth the market does, because I know the market makers are very manipulative and they have big tactics out there to really manipulate retail and take money from them. So be ready for that as well. However, overall, given the trend and other technical indicators such as the RSI and like the SPY, the QQQs, and the MACD, I think we're a lot more likely to see a continuation of the upside. So I'm more bullish than bearish for the short term. And I do think that Tesla could actually retest 226 followed by 230 very soon. That's essentially what I have for this video. Thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon because the long term future is still incredibly bright. And peace out.